How to Talk to Anyone, by author Mark Roadz. Part 1. Typical Fears and Barriers that Hinder Talking to Anyone. Chapter 1. Fear. Undoubtedly, there have been instances when you couldn't approach someone simply because you didn't know what topic to initiate a conversation on or thought that the timing was inappropriate. However, all these justifications are merely fears. You might worry, for example, about what others will think of you, fear looking foolish, or, worst of all, fear being rejected. The following chain of thinking emerges. Believing that you won't succeed leads to fear, which prompts unpleasant sensations that discourage you from taking action. Consequently, it becomes unlikely for you to showcase your best self. On the other hand, if you approach things with enthusiasm, it will give you a boost of energy and motivation to act. Undoubtedly, you will achieve positive outcomes and gain even more self-assurance. Therefore, in order to diminish or overcome the feeling of fear, it is crucial to start by changing your thoughts and sensations, and it would be preferable for you to remember this. Many people experience fear when they have to strike up a conversation with a stranger, but some individuals, even if they feel scared, convince themselves that fear is not a reason to retreat and refrain from taking action. However, for others, experiencing even a slight fear is enough for them to back down. Thus, courage is not the absence of fear but the ability to harness and control it. If your fear is so strong that it paralyzes you, you need to reduce it to an acceptable level, and now we will discuss how to do that. Firstly, repetition can help you. By repeating certain actions, your level of fear will decrease each time. Therefore, you only need to overcome yourself the first time. Secondly, you don't need to dwell on what might happen. So, stop worrying that something may go wrong and develop a habit of envisioning that everything will go well. Try the following. If meeting up with your friends brings you a sense of optimism, try transferring that feeling to a situation where you need to approach someone and start a conversation. By changing your thought patterns, you change your sensations, and it is within these sensations that fear takes root. Lastly, live in the present moment. For most people, their minds are preoccupied with thoughts of the future and the past, and they pay little attention to the present moment they are actually living in. However, anxiety is precisely tied to thoughts about the future, events that haven't happened yet, or may never happen. Being present in the current moment is aided by meditation. Try the following method. Whenever negative thoughts arise, focus on them and ask yourself why you're thinking about them or what you're thinking about that makes you feel this way. By doing this, you train yourself to interrupt the stream of consciousness that drifts into the future and redirect your attention to the present moment. Simply observe the feeling of fear as an internal sensation without resisting it. Think of it as you would a mild itch. You notice it as a sensation, but it's the thoughts triggered by this itch that create negativity. It's just a sensation, and once you focus on it, it will gradually fade away. Additionally, certain sensations are associated with specific words for us. If you calmly say to yourself a few times, "Relax," your body will respond to it. When you're relaxed, fear does not exist. However, if we continue to dwell on scary thoughts, we fuel our fear and further dramatize the situation. From all of this, it follows that the main barrier preventing successful communication is you and your thought patterns. Imagine a situation where you try to talk to someone, but they look away, and you wonder what they might think. Some might assume that the person doesn't want to talk to them and is implying their lack of interest. Thinking this way, you're unlikely to approach the next stranger. Others might think that the person is shy or simply tired. By giving it such meaning, your thought patterns become entirely different. From all of this, it is evident that changing your thought patterns helps overcome fear and learn to talk to anyone. Chapter 2. I don't want to be rejected. Everyone fears being rejected. When we want to talk to someone, the fear of being rejected manifests as fear of the other person's negative reaction. However, this fear is unwarranted because, in most cases, the reaction will not be as negative as you anticipate. In fact, a negative reaction is highly unlikely. When you approach someone, you cannot accurately gauge their current emotions, and their reaction will depend on those emotions. For example, the person may be going through something in their life and be in a bad mood, leading them to push you away. Remember, they are rejecting the timing, not you as a person who simply approached at an inconvenient time. You can also try engaging in conversation while in motion. Passing by someone, give them a compliment or make an observation. Even if they don't respond, it holds no significance. This gradually helps you realize that there is nothing to fear about talking to strangers. If you want to initiate a conversation with someone, dismiss all negative thoughts. Think to yourself that either everything will go well, or something interesting will happen that you can later share with a friend. If things don't go according to plan, try to find something funny about it. You'll realize that there's nothing scary about it. If someone ignores you, turn it into a funny story to share with a few friends, and you'll stop taking it so seriously. People also hesitate to start a conversation because they believe they need a valid reason to do so. However, you don't need a significant reason. Simply having nothing else to do, wanting to learn more about something, or giving someone a compliment is enough. Treat the conversation not as something serious but as a game where it's interesting to see what happens next. Chapter 3. I worry about what others might think. There are people who are dependent on the opinions of others, and they have low self-esteem. They avoid crowded places because they feel like everyone is judging them as soon as they enter. For the same reason, they fear approaching people because they think others will start judging them based on how they interact with a stranger. Firstly, those around you have no idea that you are unfamiliar to them. Secondly, everyone is completely indifferent because they are preoccupied with their own problems. Additionally, there may be a fear of failure. For example, you see a vending machine but hesitate to use it because you have never used one before and fear that if you do something wrong, everyone will laugh at you. However, you must understand that no one succeeds on their first attempt. So, ignore the opinions of others and start doing more of what you previously limited yourself from. If someone starts judging you, ask yourself who they are and what they have achieved in life. In the end, you will come to the conclusion that these people have nothing significant that would allow them to judge or criticize you. You are the master of your own life, and if someone disagrees with your opinion, it doesn't mean you are wrong. A good way to overcome the fear of criticism is to imagine the worst-case scenario. For example, imagine that while giving a speech, you do something wrong, and everyone starts laughing at you. By envisioning this, you can mentally prepare yourself to respond with something like, "Oh, stop it. I'm glad you enjoyed it." This demonstrates that the reaction doesn't really affect or frighten you. Part 2. The 4 stages of communication interaction. Stage 1. Desired outcome and opening the conversation. To begin with, determine the desired outcome of the interaction. Perhaps you want to meet someone new, obtain necessary information, share impressions about something interesting, or negotiate a contract. By deciding on the outcome before the conversation, you can choose your words and tactics in advance. For example, if you choose to obtain necessary information, you should immediately address the person's question. What does this person need? Why did they decide to talk to me? How much time will it take? Let's say you're looking for a book recommendation. Approach someone nearby and ask, "Excuse me, I have a quick question. I think you're knowledgeable about this genre. Could you recommend a good book to me?" This way, you answer all the questions of what, why, and how much. So, every time you approach a stranger, think about how many questions they might have and prepare answers in advance. If you are in a public place, such as waiting in line or for a bus, make use of the time by finding someone to talk to. Strike up a conversation and see how it goes. Similarly, when you're in an elevator with someone, both of you may feel awkward. Everyone tries to avoid eye contact and simply looks at the floor indicator. But if someone starts a conversation, it immediately eases the tension. You can even start with something as simple as commenting on the weather. If you're at a movie theater performance, or a sports match, you already have common points of interest with the person next to you. You just need to express them. For example, you can ask, "What did you think of the previous part of this movie?" Or, "What are your thoughts on this actor's performances?" Or, "Who do you think will win?" Try to avoid questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no. When interacting with people, we establish certain boundaries or frames. We behave and speak differently within these different frames. For example, with one person, you may have a friendly relationship, while with another person, it may be purely professional. However, these frames are merely imaginary constructs. Therefore, you can choose the frame for each interaction. When approaching a stranger, imagine that your friend is in their place. Pretend that you have known each other for a long time and have spent a lot of time together. This will make it much easier for you to engage in dialogue. Stage 2. Sparking curiosity and interest. To make the conversation engaging for the other person, insert amusing stories and interesting facts into the conversation. Also, involve their imagination by starting sentences with, if you. Stage 3. Establishing connection and understanding. Every person processes information differently. In NLP theory, this can be categorized as visual, auditory, or kinesthetic processing. You can determine how a person thinks based on their choice of words. Those who think in visual images often use phrases like, I see, in my view, or imagine. Those who listen to their inner voice use words like, sounds cool, or listen. And those who rely on feelings may use phrases such as, I have a bad feeling, or, I feel that everything will be fine. Therefore, if you hear the person saying, I would watch that movie, you should continue the conversation using a visual style. For example, your response could be, it looks good. I would like to see it too, rather than saying, I feel that this movie will give me a lot of new sensations. In the first case, you strengthen mutual understanding, while in the second case, you don't. Stage 4. Encouraging action. If you want to close a deal or reach an agreement, speak to the client as if they have already accepted your proposal. Instead of saying, if you become our client, say, as our client, you will be involved in this. This way, you nudge the person as if the decision has already been made. You can also use a double bind technique with clients. For example, instead of asking, would you like to buy something from this? You can ask, which product would you like us to wrap for you, product A or product B? By doing this, you're already implying that the customer will definitely make a purchase. Part 3. Making communication more effective. First and foremost, pay attention to your tone. The same phrase spoken with different tones can be perceived differently. For example, when sharing something troubling, use an anxious tone of voice. When talking about something joyful, use an enthusiastic tone. This way, you engage the person more effectively with your storytelling. Secondly, adjust your speaking pace to match the other person's. If they speak quickly, try to speak at a similar pace, if it doesn't cause too much discomfort for you. People process information differently, and if you speak rapidly to someone who takes their time to think, they may not fully grasp what you're saying. On the other hand, if you speak too slowly, you might bore someone while they wait for you to finish your sentence. The video has come to an end. Subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, click the bell icon, and leave any comments you'd like.